So, hello everyone, and welcome to the Guitar Builders Collective podcast. Yeah, I'm sure people watching live on YouTube will recognise all our faces, including our guests. But if you're listening on the audio, just so you know, the audio version that we're doing is new for us, and it's great you're listening on it. But what would be really helpful for us, being that it's new, is if you could leave a review, etc., subscribe, do a bit of sharing, and if you're watching on YouTube, please go over to wherever you get your podcasts and try and subscribe and download, because that helps us get it out a bit, and leave a review. But what will be useful for me is if you can't find it on wherever you normally get your podcasts, you can let us know either in the sort of description on YouTube, or you can message me info@Devil and Sons Guitars, because I'm trying my best to distribute it to all podcast servers. And as far as I know, it is out there everywhere, but I can't physically check everything. So up to people to let me know. It is on Spotify. It's on Spotify as an audio. I am going to start uploading the video to Spotify as well, because Spotify allows you to do that. But that's later on my list, because what I think we're going to have is the audio is just going to be from the 50th episode onwards, so sort of like year 2 of the podcast. But I might put up some archive old videos of the podcast as well, so people on Spotify can see them, because we might as well. That's quite straightforward for me, whereas ripping the audio from everything is more complicated. Anyway, enough admin. So today we've got joining us from America, there's Mark Gutierrez over here. We've got Scott from Bonehead Guitars over here. In the UK with me is Dave from Footstep Guitars. And I can't get my names right. And our guest is joining us from Germany today, and it's Gabriele. Gabriele, is it Réti? Is that? Am I saying?
Réti, that's the name. It's a Hungarian name.
Ah, fantastic. Yeah, Gabriele, you may not know this, but a few months ago we put out a call to ask who. Oh, sorry. Hold on one moment. School holidays. I just had a call from a child. Yeah, we put a call out to our viewers and listeners to suggest who to invite along. And a lot of the people that watch and sort of join in with the chat for this podcast are people that have met each other through the Great Guitar Build-Off, which Crimson Guitars used to run. And Gabriele, you were a contestant in that a number of times, and everyone who watches it is very impressed by your work, and thought it'd be great to have you on. Not just because of the work you do, but also you do very different to what a lot of us do, because you make acoustic guitars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very different. And this is what actually I'm kind of surprised why people would want to talk to me, because the whole community basically seems to be about electric guitars, except maybe for Chris Garland, who also builds acoustics. And when I joined the Great Guitar Build the first time, I was actually very hesitant, and it only happened because somebody on my YouTube channel would kind of ask the Crimsons whether it was okay to enter an acoustic guitar, because that's what I'm building. But if you take a look at the vast majority of contributions, you see they're electrics, and I felt like that's not my place to participate. I even have a video on that where I explain about being hesitant, but then I said, what the heck, have a go at it. And the first time I was like an exotic builder, because I think it was the only acoustic that was entered in the competition, and not many people cared for it a lot. So that's what it is.
Which is kind of strange, honestly. I felt like, because I don't know, from my perspective, there is a lot of crossover. I mean, there are a lot of the same processes. I mean, at least with the neck. But, and we've talked about this before on this show, that it feels amateurish, honestly, to be building electrics, because it is so much simpler. You know, your body is just a slab of wood and, you know, some rough routing, and you can put something together. Building acoustics, it just looks like a whole nother level.
maybe not another level, but another world, I'd say, because due to the fact that I build both, I agree with you about the slab of wood, or basically two pieces that you put together, and most of the tone in an electric, at least to my experience, is made by the electronics that's in. Of course, the wood gives a flavor to the tone. I like to say that as what's his name, Chris Alvarado from Footstep Guitars. He has that good example saying that you have the tone of the guitar and the wood is like the flavor of it. So whatever kind of wood you use makes that, but mostly the electronics. But in an acoustic guitar, it's everything that you build into it that is responsible for how the tone develops, the bracings, the kind of wood you choose, the thickness, the way you thickness the wood, the way you put the bracing on, that makes the tone. And it's simply different, but the same, though, because to me it's like taking wood, cutting it, shaping it differently, and then gluing it together again. That's instrument building.
Yeah, but watching you acoustic builders, it seems so more intricate. That's not quite the right word. Precise. So much. It looks like there's so much more actual craftsmanship that goes into it.
I mean, as I said, when you change, let's say, the position of a bracing by a couple of millimeters, you will influence the sound of the guitar. I thought you might want to see something like this. This is a guitar I'm working on these days for the winner of the custom build in the raffle I had last time, and he wanted a warm sounding guitar away from the usual materials. So I'm building all solid walnut guitar. And if you take a look at the bracing and you influence this angle, let's say here, by a few degrees, that will change the whole architecture. Or if you shift the bracing to the front and to the back, that will change the tone of the guitar as well. So this is what you most likely feel is like the precision you have to have in an acoustic, because as I said, what you put on here makes the sound of the guitar and you're playing, of course. You can't influence anything with electronics or with putting on different tuners or something. So it's all actually that, and you have to be precise. And I think each builder will find their way of putting things on the guitar. They even have jigs for just layering them on the top and then just putting the bracings onto the positions they found earlier. I don't do that. I have basic plans and I start from them all the time, but sometimes I'm changing things. For example, if I don't build a 14th fret, which is the usual fret where the body and the neck meet, but if I make a 13 fret, for instance, I will have to change that here, because then the bridge goes back to the center of the soundboard more, where the good resonant part of the top is. But that also means that the sound hole has to go in this direction, which in turn means that the whole bracing pattern will have to move with it, and that might change the tone as well.
See, everything you're saying, as you say, it sounds so obvious, but it's not something I've ever thought about. I've never really thought about the positioning of a bridge on an acoustic guitar and how it would affect the bracing. And I mean, it's a bit ignorant, but like you say, it does feel like another world to me. I was wondering before you came on as well, why it is that so many people that watch our channel and were part of the Great Guitar Build Off do build electric guitars. And I had an assumption that maybe it is because it is more simple, more forgiving, and maybe it feels like you can use less precise tools, but I don't know if that's true or not. But I wonder if it's also because of what people play. I mean, I build electric instruments partly because I play electric instruments. That's what although when I first learned, I learned Spanish guitar. I learned classical guitar for many years, moved to electric, and I hardly ever pick up anything acoustic now. Maybe anyone in the chat could let us know why it is they build what they build or like what they like.
I mean, watching Gabby, you've sort of led me down a path now where I'm trying to build electric guitars which are based on an acoustic style, because I think it saves wood. Let's be honest. We don't have big blocks of wood. It takes the weight out, and it allows the instrument to be played without being plugged in as well, which is lovely. I mean, most of the time I'm sitting playing my guitars, I've not got them plugged in, so that's wonderful. But I wanted to ask you a question, Gabby. I mean, you're talking about all these guitars you made, but how did you start building acoustic guitars? What made you go into that?
Okay, I mean, I think basically it started with my love for music in the first place. Even when I was a little girl, I liked it a lot. And I remember being at my grandma's, and this was back in the 70s, when grandmas, particularly not from the cultural background my family comes from, were not the cuddly, nice elderly ladies that you have today, but they were people of respect, and they kind of feared them a little bit. So every time when I went to the place, I felt like not moving freely in the house and so on. But there was this one room, which was the former room of my aunt. And in that room, they used it after my aunt moved out. They used the room for storage and so on. There was a guitar on a stand, and I dared to sneak in this room, pluck the strings of the guitar, because I've always been drawn to instruments of all kinds, and this is where my love for the plucking on the strings, I cannot call it any different, started. And when I got 10 years old, I asked my mom basically for a guitar for my birthday and Christmas together, because they're close together. And I come from a migrant, not well-off family, and so they spent 69 D-marks back at the time on that guitar for me, and I didn't know how to play it. I didn't even know how to tune a guitar. I didn't know what a guitar was, so I had the guitar, but I couldn't do anything with it. It was a small folk-like nylon strung guitar, and I plucked the strings, played it, but of course no sound that was pleasing came out of it, because I didn't know how to play it. And then I kind of threw it in the corner for about 9 years or so. And then when I took my A-levels exams, we had a band, and somebody said, okay, and you are going to play guitar. And I was like, okay, what have I got to do? And this is when I got into playing guitar myself. And then it was an electric, the cheapo electric that I had, and I did the job there. And then it started out with improving electric guitars that I had, because being on a budget back then, I said, I buy the best cheap guitar that I can get, and then I mod it so that it gets better. An electric guitar to me was like, okay, you just throw in good electronics and you do a setup, and then you're good to go. And this is how I started out. And the first acoustic thing that came up was with a guitar that I had at my school's band. I lead the band there, and there was an acoustic guitar whose bridge came off due to the dry climate that we have in the Ola where it was. And it was shortly after the guarantee of this guitar expired. So I called the shop where I bought it, and I said, hey, look, this is the problem. And then they said, sorry. Okay, so if the guitar is ruined anyway, I could have a go at fixing the bridge. And this was the first thing that I did building wise in a guitar. I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and then I loosened the bridge and cleared it all out and replaced it. And this guitar still works today. So this was the first when I really touched an acoustic in a, let's say, manufacturing way, in lack of a better word. And then many years later, in 2018, this is when I really started out with that. I watched a YouTube video of a guy, this is called Building a Guitar from Reclaimed Wood, the Scrap Mold. And it had, I think, I don't know, 1 million or something views. And I watched that, and this guy threw together a guitar from waste wood. And I was always good at doing work with my hands because we were taught, because we didn't have the money for any handyman or anything, we were taught to fix and repair things ourselves by our dad, and this is what we always would do. And I was always good at woodworking or working with my hands in general. And then I said, okay, let's see if I can do that myself. So I picked up trash wood from whatever, picnic tables. I had a picnic table legs. I used those for top and back of the guitar. A kitchen counter, top of wood. I cut the neck from that. And so I did a training guitarist. And I said, can I do what the guy is doing in the video? And I happened to build this guitar, and I have it here so that you can see it. Unfortunately, I cut it in half, and I will tell in a moment why this is the guitar I made, and these are
wow.
a spruce
Nice.
top and spruce back, which is not something that you normally use. So I built this guitar from the strips that I cut from the picnic table legs, and what you see here is floorboard material and cable ties that I used for the rosette and all the stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it took me making this rosette took me about, I don't know, 4 days or something. And when I was finished with basically only the top wood and the rosette, I showed it to my mom and said, look what I've done. It's like Tom Hanks in Castaway, and said, fire, fire. Look what I've done. And my mom said, oh, a toilet seat. Because okay. And then I built this guitar out of trash material, and it took me about half a year to do that. And I made many mistakes, but I learned a lot. And at the same time, I read a book about guitar building, and I tried to apply all the things of how to make a tenon and all these things. And I built this with hand tools mainly, because I did have some tools, but back at the time for this, I used a jigsaw, a drill, then I've got a couple of hand saws, not very good chisels, why it took me so long to make the bracing here, and I got blisters in my hands from chiseling. And you know what it is like, most likely, to work with bad tools. It's not fun. And I cut it in half. Actually, it didn't sound too bad, I have to say. And I cut it in half for my guitar building class at school that I've been running for 2 years, a bit more than that now, in order to show the people what's going on the inside in a guitar. And when they're doing or taking the steps of making the guitar, I can show them here in the example why we're doing what we're doing, the way we're doing it. And so this is just a good example of how you can get started with guitar building.
Had you done much woodworking before that?
Yeah, of course, always. For example, this, if you take a look at this couch, I built this out of an old bed or something. I would do things like that, or make my own guitar stands. And they're all over the place here. So I've done that all the time, but not only woodworking, but working with tools in general, so fixing, changing like the brakes on my motorcycle, things like that.
Fantastic. Before we carry on, we've got a quick question in the chat from Electric Lady Guitars, and it is, you do some repurposing of wood, like the picnic table there, but is the wood tone secondary to what's available to you locally?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you have preferred woods? Do you prefer just using locally sourced things?
Yeah. Okay. The thing is, I do a lot of upcycling, which is why my Instagram is called GMR, my initials upcycling. And tone wood, so-called tone wood, there are people who say, acoustic guitars have to be made of this and that wood precisely. And you might know that from the electric world too. They say you build a Les Paul style guitar, it has to be mahogany, whatever. So I think the good thing about building yourself is you can do whatever you like, with some restrictions regarding acoustic guitars, because the wood is responsible for the tone more than it is than in an electric. Let's say I have, normally you have a soft wood on top, like spruce or cedar, which are the typical things to go on a guitar top. And for the back and sides, you have some hardwood, mostly mahogany, then you've got rosewood, and there are some other woods. So I did a lot of experimenting with different woods, and found out that you can build the back and sides basically out of whatever you like. Okay, the back and sides give the tone, or the spice to the tone. If I say I want a more warm sounding guitar, I choose a wood like maybe walnut or mahogany. If I want a brighter sounding guitar, I might choose rosewood, or I might choose ash, or I might choose materials that are not even typical for acoustic guitar building. And I've built of many different kinds of woods to see. They all sound a bit different, but none of them sounds bad. So this is what I say. You can build a good sounding guitar out of basically any material. When it comes to the tops, though, they are the main contributor to the sound. They are what makes an acoustic guitar sound. So the top swings, in theory, it swings nicely, and you have you've got the resonances, and they are transported inside the body, and then they come out the sound hole, which produces the sound. Which is why you want the back and the sides to be hardwood, so that they can reflect the sound more easily. That the top produces. If you take a look at this, you're throwing up the eagle here on the screen. This is a guitar that has a spruce top, but I layered that picture on it. And that influences the sound, of course, because if I layer another thin layer of wood on it, the wood can't swing the way it would swing if there weren't anything on it. But then again, I have to counter this with working on the bracing, so to give this stiffer top with the layer on top of it more room to vibrate by making it a bit thinner, working on the bracing so that I can get the vibration that I need. And there are some very good woods. The person asked what my favorite woods are. Walnuts. I like walnuts a lot because they give me a warm, mid-rangey tone, but I also have a soft spot for simply fruit wood, like apple, pear, plum, cherry is one of my favorites. I really like that it has this, I call it silvery overtone that I really like a lot. But then again, each guitar that I build, I tend to say sounds decent, if not good, but not two of them sound the same, even if I make them of the same material. And I personally think that the shape of the guitar has got a bit more to do with the tone of the guitar than the actual wood you're using. Some of you were wondering, yeah?
I was actually going to ask quickly, when you mentioned where the eagle was, how you had to change the bracing underneath, is that something you just anticipate and you carve with some knowledge of what it's going to be like, or is there a way that you can test when you're doing it?
Okay, I wouldn't say that I have a lot of knowledge, and you will find purists and people that say what I'm doing is completely wrong and has to be done this and that way, and it always has to be this way. There was one guy who was very, very aggressive in the first great guitar build-off when I built this guitar from the wall boards from our Ola, and he wrote me mails and it was very aggressive, and he says that's impossible, blah blah blah, and so on. What you do normally is, or what I do, is you have to voice a top. Other than with an electric, when you put a drop top on, you just put it on for aesthetics, most likely. And this is the sound generator, the top. And what you have to do is you have to, I have a starting point, so you scallop the bracings, which you see here, which is you take away material and you taper them towards the top in order to have enough stability, because this top that is basically 2 millimeters tall has to take all the pull from the strings and tension, and this is a lot on an acoustic guitar, a steel string acoustic guitar. And so you have to make this very stable with the bracing, but at the same time you want it to resonate and to be elastic at the same time. So what you do is you start out with the measurements that I have set for myself and say, okay, this is a good starting point, and then you just tap tone the top, which means when I hold it in certain places and tap the guitar, you might have seen that in different places, I want it to be resonant and produce notes rather than sounds. So what I do is I tap in different places and I see if I get different notes. And if it's not alive yet, I call it, then I need to take off more material in that area, losing the stability. And this is how you go about voicing the top. And then when you listen to it and find the right tones, there's some people who measured that and they said, this is so many hertz. That means I'm not a professional builder. I do, and I say when I get a lot of ring out of it, meaning I feel it's a resonant top, and I get it to sound with different notes, I'm fine. Okay, then I put it on the guitar, and later you can do some sanding on top also to influence the sound. But I'm happy as long as the guitar sounds good, and what sounds good to me might not sound good to somebody else. But since this, for example, is a prize that somebody wins, they don't have to complain about how it sounds.
Gabby, could I just ask you? You're talking about the wood on the top. Have you built a guitar with the hardwood on the top as well? Have you ever tried that? And does it? Is it really different?
Yeah, it is like this walnut.
That's a walnut. Yeah,
that's a walnut. That's a hardwood. And the hardwood guitars that let's see, so there are a couple of them that I have here. One of which is this that I made of mahogany from the wallboards. This is my first upcycling guitar. There's some walnut on the sides because mahogany doesn't steam bend. This is the way I bend my sides. I put it in a steam box for, depending on the material, 20 to 30 minutes, and then I quickly put it over my mold and clamp it to it, let it sit there for 24 hours and good to go. So this is the reason why there is walnut on the back, but the top and the back are made of mahogany. And what mahogany or hardtop guitars do, to my understanding, is they give more mid-range and they make a smoother, warmer sound. You normally don't get so much volume out of it as if you were throwing on a Sitka spruce top or something. But you can very well build hardtop guitars like this one or another one that I've got here, which is this one. This is Bocote, which is a kind of walnut. It belongs into the walnut family, but it's a hard wood top also. And normally I make those tops a bit thinner than I would do with a spruce or a cedar top, because depending on I'm talking, moving around, doing these things. No, that's not the way you do it. I'll be back in a moment. Here I am again. So I make the hardwood tops a bit thinner than spruce or cedar, because if the wood is stiffer and harder, of course it needs to be thinner to do the.
Yeah. I'm glad you said mahogany doesn't bend. I spent the whole day trying to bend mahogany.
You have to bend mahogany on hot pipe, and that is a job I really don't like, because what you're filling, let's say, with the waste, you're doing that, you're doing it, and there's all hot air blowing, and you're doing it, and then you're fine with that part, and you bend the next part, and you say, oh, the first one doesn't fit anymore. So it takes a long time adjusting this and that. So I avoid building all solid mahogany guitars with mahogany sides. But lately I've bought electric heated iron for somebody at school who wants to build a guitar out of what is it? It's I tell you, Corina. No, okay. What is it? Corina? Black limber. They want to build out of black limber because they like the wood, but black limber again doesn't steam bend, so you have to do that over hot iron to see that happen. And yeah, so I don't like it, so I don't do it. I just throw on some other material, which means that, as in the guitar that I've just shown you back here, top and back are mahogany sides and walnut, because walnut bends very well in a steam box.
One thing I'm definitely getting is this idea that it feels like being a hobby, self-taught electric guitar builder, there aren't that many barriers because it doesn't seem as challenging. There's a lot out there on YouTube, and there are lots of things you can buy, like you can buy a neck, you can buy a kit. But hearing you talk about the fact that you're self-taught and the way you're talking about listening to this tone on the top, and obviously there's your experience there, but it's not like you're saying you don't have to be incredibly technical with all the right tools. It does feel quite inspiring to make me think, oh, I wouldn't mind giving this a go the way you're talking about it.
Do so.
Yeah, and obviously Dave is at the moment, but because part of the reason we all know you is because of your YouTube, which obviously has educational bits in it. Someone's already mentioned your sort of carves in the guitar, and I noticed one of your most recent videos was showing how to make the bevel, the carve in the. So I just want to ask you a bit more about your YouTube channel and what made you use YouTube as an outlet or a thing to do.
Yeah, I'm wondering myself. Well, the thing is, I call myself the YouTube parasite for so many years, as many of us have been, because I watch other people's videos, and I particularly like these ASMR videos of some people restoring old, 100-year-old toy, a metal toy, to something. And not much talking, it's just looking at their craftsmanship and seeing, hey, that's so cool. And I started the channel because of my Christmas calendar, actually, the musical Christmas calendar we did. It formerly was just audio, so I recorded that in my small studio, which this is my office, my studio and whatever room, and I produced CDs with that, or just MP3s to throw at the people in a Christmas calendar. And then we said, okay, let's do some videos. But in order to throw out a video at the people, we need to have channels. I started a channel because of the first videos that we did for the Christmas calendar. And this guitar building thing that took over was... yeah, it actually started when my younger brother gave me a guitar that he found in the trash. It was an electric, it was an Epiphone, Les Paul type, student something, I don't know what it called, guitar. And I just said, okay, let's see if I can save it and if I can do some improvements on it. And this video kind of took off, and then people thought I did that for a living, making YouTube videos. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel that the community can be quite greedy when it comes down to more videos, give me more, give me more. Because if I'm not posting a video for like, I mean, in December I throw 24 videos for the Christmas calendar, and I did a lot of guitar building videos last year in the Great Guitar Build-Off. I built a couple of guitars for that, then I build the ones for charity and so on. And then I don't post a video for 2 months, and when I come back to post another video, say, thank God you're back, as if, yeah, this was my job, which it isn't. So this calendar grew, the channel grew with the people liking the guitar videos, and I normally do these long videos, build from start to finish, but it's kind of tricky because people don't like watching long videos. Not all people. Let's say there's a certain group of people who enjoy that and who say, I like doing that. It gives me an hour watching the video of ASMR, free time, enjoy myself, and we're good to go. But filming a video of an acoustic build, and if you want to put in all the steps, is simply, you can't make it any shorter. Because if I build an electric guitar, and if I take a look at the videos that I'm filming, because I'm filming the whole process, because I don't have anybody to run the camera for me, so I start the camera, then I do the work, and later in editing I find a part from the video that I use for the whole process. And what did I want to say? YouTube videos. Yeah, it takes a lot of time making the videos also, and since I don't do that for living, I say, why would I do that? But I want to give something back to the community because, as I said, I've enjoyed so many videos on YouTube that I say I can very well, when I'm doing the process anyway, I can also film it and show some of it, but I'm not filming every build I'm doing. And as I said in one of my later videos when I showed how to make a bevel, I want to make more videos such going in detail because that's what people are really interested. I get a lot of questions via Instagram on my YouTube channel about how to do this, how to do that, what are you doing at minute so and so, so and so, because a lot of people seem to be wanting to start with building. And as you said, Daniel, just get going. I mean, if you're a bit experienced and you're not all thumbs, then it's not too difficult. You can only learn from your first experience. And if you don't want to ruin tone woods, then start out with scrap wood, as I do. But if you're experienced in making electrics, you can also do an acoustic. That's what I think.
Obviously, the people that are watching can see this, but we put up your Instagram a minute ago, and now we've got some of your builds on in the background. But I'll put links in the video descriptions to everything. So your Instagram and your YouTube. But one thing that I like about your YouTube, which is similar with Dave as well as the making, you've got the playing on it as well. So it shows that kind of enthusiasm and love of music that goes across the different things.
Yeah, and basically in all of the videos I'm playing my own guitars. Mark told in one of the other podcasts that he started out because he didn't want to spend thousands and thousands on custom-made guitars. I never would spend such a lot of money on guitars because, for what they're doing, particularly electros, that's much too expensive for a block of wood and pickups. That's my opinion. So I said, if my guitars are good enough that I like it, so I play them. And before I started building myself, I had the typical guess that everybody might know, the gear acquisition syndrome, when you go like, and if I had a better guitar, then I would be a better player, and because I will practice more, and this is the guitar that I need, that gives me the sound, and then you build around it, you put in swap pickups, put in different things, you make it play. And after a while you realize, I need another guitar, I need this guitar and that guitar, and you buy and buy and buy and buy. But I didn't really get attached to the guitars that I bought, and I'm not a good enough player for justifying spending so much money on a guitar. And so I think my guitars are good enough for me, and I basically sold all of my other guitars or gave them away to somebody maybe more worthy of that, and I'm good to go. And this is what I'm playing on my channel because I can build them, and they're basically very well working instruments that you can use for recordings, and I use them in studio situations as well.
Do you know what? I think that's really important. I mean, I agree with you. I've got a couple of guitars that I've bought, but I tend to play my own. Probably not because they're any better, but there's something about playing your own guitar. I mean, they are unique, aren't they? Let's be honest. There's nobody else who's got that guitar, even though it might not be the top guitar. But
I know. I've just started, or not just started, the last few months I've been repainting the guitars that I own, that I bought from other companies, just so I can experiment with different paint techniques on it. And I'm just going to sell them now because I've sort of lost any connection to it. I don't feel like I've enjoyed painting them, but I don't feel precious about them like I did a few years ago. There's two guitars that I used to, or bass guitars, that I always played live, and they were my go-to guitars. But now I just feel like I'd rather play one of the ones I've built if I'm going to play anything than these ones. And so they've lost that connection. I'd rather they went on to someone else, and they're a good excuse to do that paint work.
That is, I think, illustrated really well by the fact that when somebody asks me what my favorite guitar build is, I always say the last one.
Yeah.
So guitar acquisition syndrome, it's real with a builder too, because I love this one, this is awesome, and I finish the next one, and now this is my favorite, and I've forgotten all about this stupid thing. It's funny.
No, I don't feel this about my own guitars, because if I build for myself, like the ones that I have here all over the house, these are the ones that I built for myself, and I have a problem giving them away. But if I know that I'm building for somebody else, I have no problem of not getting too attached to the instrument, even though I'm always planning on building the best instrument at the time that I can build, with my knowledge and with my capabilities at the moment, that I build right now. And but I have no problem parting with the ones that I built for other people. But this one, somebody was, you were talking actually about it, why my contribution to the invitationals last year. I had 2 invitational contributions to Great Guitar Builder, one of which was the electric, because I knew people of the Great Guitar Builder want electrics more than acoustics, and the other one, the Café au lait, was the one that I made of the leftover bits and pieces. And this one, I had this one finished already before Crimson's contacted me about joining as an invitational builder. So I knew this was my contribution to my category, the freestyle category, which meant I couldn't do something similar or something like this again for my invitational category. So I would have to come up with something else, which is the reason why I wanted to use the same idea with the pattern, because I had some of the pieces left that I made for this build, put them on the electric, and then made another acoustic for the competition, because that's my thing, making acoustics.
Yeah, before we get on to talking about that, and because again, if you're listening to audio, we're just playing a video of one of the guitars that Gabby's built, that's got so many layers to it, like lots of laminate splicing, cutting together. And I find just watching the video, when you were talking about ASMR earlier, very inspirational, because a lot of the time I'm looking at how you're doing things, your jigs and your setups. I'm thinking about how I might use them. But before we talk about that, there was a quick question in the chat, which was Electric Lady Guitars Devon was asking, have you ever used a compound radius on a fretboard acoustic, or is that something that even exists? Because I'm not aware of that.
Well, first I would have to know what you mean by compound radius fretboard.
So
I'm not familiar with the term. You mean making your radius fretboard?
Yeah, but do you actually have flat fretboards?
No, they're all radius.
Yeah. So a compound radius is normally where it changes as it goes up the neck.
Yeah. So okay. No. I use the same radius all over, which is normally 14 on my acoustics, and that's what I do, because I like a rather flatter radius, because there are acoustics that have a stronger bend, but they seem to work well for me. And to be honest, I stole that from a guitar that I had at the time, which was an Epiphone DR500, I think, and I measured that radius because I really like the feel of the neck, and so this is what I use on my guitars, but I don't compensate anything going up the fretboard. It's just 14 straight through the guitar. Classical guitars, and Dave, you're planning on building one though, they have flat.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I go for a 16-inch radius on my electrics. I like it flatter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's crazy, Dave.
No, it's great.
The flatter the better.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel that way.
Yeah. I think it's like Ty's mentioned before as well. He likes really thick. I think he described them as baseball necks on his electrics, and I've got quite into thicker necks myself when I play. But it's not a thing that I think other people want. Like, I'm not sure what people want, but I guess building what you want is the start of it all, and then hopefully people come around to liking that.
On that subject, last week I happened to I had a chance to play 4 or 5 different Les Pauls, and I hated every single one of them. The neck felt like a tree trunk. It was so fat. It was just. But I've been playing this Strandberg all this time, and I picked up a handful of Les Pauls, and one of them was an older one. I can't remember how old it was, but I think it was a reissue of, and relict gold top to look like it was something special. But it had the fattest neck of all of them, and every single one of them I absolutely hated playing. I've gotten used to that Strandberg neck, and it felt like baseball. No, it was more like a tree trunk. I hated it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way, but it has to do with that I have really really small hands. I mean, of course, I'm a woman that makes my hands smaller than others, but within the range of the women, my hands are quite small, and I can't handle any big fat necks. Even though my playing is out of the question anyway, because 2 times I badly injured my index finger. Some of you might have noticed that because I mentioned in some of the videos. First time I cut myself with a chisel to the bone and cut my arm, my so there is basically not any feeling anymore, which was not too bad because 1.5 years later I got my finger in the table saw, and that basically ripped apart my whole fingertip, but they put it together nicely. But it didn't hurt so much because I didn't have any nerve.
Previously, cut the nerves. Okay.
Yeah, but I still not feel it when I'm playing. So I'm not here to be a rock star anymore. So
I think your playing's quite impressive, to be honest. There you go.
A couple years ago on Great Guitar Build Off build, I don't even remember what it was. Something goofy, and it just never should have happened. But I slipped and clipped a chunk off of my finger pad, and it didn't seem like that big of a deal. And when it healed, it looks like a blister. It's actually even discolored. If you mash on it, it hurts underneath, but it's also numb. It's weird.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got to be careful with
Did you play Maiden in your video last year?
Say what?
Didn't you play Ein Maiden song for your presentation? So it's still good enough for that.
Yeah. I thank God I can still play, but
yeah.
At the moment I've got a finger that's I don't know if it was dislocated or if I've actually broken at the knuckle, but so it doesn't want to bend too far, but I can still play. It just hurts.
Oh, there you go. So do you guys sometimes wonder about that? Because I have a big respect for the table saw. This and the routing table are the 2 tools that freak me out even in my dreams at night sometimes, because I have dreams of getting my whole hand in the table saw, cutting it off. And then I imagine sometimes when I'm awake, what if I really lost a finger? So then I would have to give away all my guitars. So, do you have fantasies like that?
I have been having some problems in the last year or so that have increased quite a bit recently, where my hands are numb a lot of times, and just found out just how bad my neck actually is. And I'm looking at having to do some surgery to fuse a couple vertebrae so I can still feel my damn hands. And it's made me think about, how much I need my hands for everything I enjoy. Yeah. Since you brought that up, yeah.
Spooky, sorry.
Be careful.
I'm scared to death of my table saw so much that it's not in the shop anymore. I got rid of it. I don't use a table saw. That's how scared I am. And also my old router is also scary as hell, so I don't use that either. And I've kind of substituted and found tools that I feel are safer instead of the router and the table saw, because they're gone. They're not in the shop.
I like table saws, but I've wound up using the bandsaw a lot more because it's right there.
Absolutely.
The table router, and I've more than once on video I've said I'm terrified. A table router scares the hell out of me. Hand router, if something slips or catches or kicks, I've got to hold a bit. When you're the moving part and the router is stationary, terrifying.
I've got to say, I used to worry a bit about my router table And then I upgraded my round table so it would take 1/2-inch collet. So now I'm using even bigger bits in it. And the first time I put this big, huge, chunky thing from Radian, not sponsoring today, I was quite fearful of it. But one thing I definitely noticed is as soon as I had a better quality router, a better quality bit, it wasn't quite as scary, because there was none of the sort of shaking that I was having before when the bit was feeding through. Everything was just smoother. So I have realized more and more that with certain tools, I'm not going to cut corners and buy a cheap thing, because it's not worth the risk when you're using something that can be so dangerous.
But
the thing that worries me the most is the hidden things like the dust, and especially when I use lots of nitrocellulose, the stuff I'm breathing in, even with my masks and covers on it. That's what worries
I'm not
me.
using that anymore, because I don't spray paint any guitar anymore. I just oil them. That's the only thing I'm doing, and this is very satisfying. It's actually my favorite part of the process.
I noticed you've got a really good finish on those guitars. What sort of oils are you using?
What I'm using is True Oil. You might have
right.
heard of that. True Oil. That's the name of it. And I put it on in different, can you say that, liquidities? Is that the word you use? So I start out by diluting. I think that's the word.
Diluting, yeah.
I'm sorry, diluting. So learned another thing today. That's great. Okay, so by diluting it a bit with mineral spirits, quite a lot. It's almost 50-50 when I start out with the first layers of that, then sand in between. And then when I get to building of the layers, I use it a bit more liquid, more, what is it called?
Viscous.
That's the word, yeah. More viscous. Sorry. More viscous.
You do very well.
In the end, when I'm close to being finished, what I do is that I dilute it again a bit more, and I apply the finish with the guitar being in a horizontal position like this, so that it can kind of build a liquid layer that doesn't have any waves or bumps or whatever. You have to be careful though for some rules that you might get, but this is the way I go about it. I don't do any polishing or anything in the end. The only thing I do is I take like a 5,000 sandpaper and go smoothly over it to get rid of any debris from the air, any lint that might be there. But I'll do that not in a special environment, but in my pool room where I built, and you were wondering about my workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us about your workshop areas.
Yeah. So this is just a room in my house where my pool table is, and normally before building guitars, I play pool in there, and I stored my CDs and my comic book collection there. And then I just built some kind of an adapter, a board that fits inside the table, so that I can put it on or take it off in case I want to play around the pool, but I haven't played in like 3 years or so. So this thing is constantly on there, and I covered the table, and this is where I work, basically, because it gives me, I think, a big advantage. I don't have to be in a nice cold shed like some of you. Last time, when was it? I watched one of the podcasts in which a guy from Australia, and then wintertime right now was there. He was there even in the speaker. I said, I don't want to work in such an environment. So I just work in my house, but that means I have to clean up after each step in order not to have dust. And now I've had this house for 10 years now, and I think it's about time that I painted the walls in this room, because on the tapestry you will find a lot of sawdust. Sometimes I just vacuum it off. But still,
So sometimes I've seen it looks like you're in a garage or a bigger space.
There was in the beginning when I still did some. No, you mean the one? That's the workshop at school, actually. So it's because the table saw is at school. I don't have it here at home. because it makes everything that makes a mess, I just shoved over to school. And we have this workshop, but we're not allowed to use that anymore because it has only one entrance and exit. And Germans are very, very precise with security regulations. And if you're using a room as such, you will have to have at least 2 exits there in case of emergency. So I, as a grown-up, can use it, but the students are not allowed to go there anymore because there won't be a second exit. And this is a room where the table saw is, and sometimes when I do things that need to be done there, I do it there, but most of the times I do it here. And if I don't want to make a big mess here, like using the routing table or the router table, I'll do that at school.
Yeah. So separate question then, but we get back to your workshop. What do you do at the school? Because you mentioned you do a bit of teaching of guitar building.
Mm-hmm. This is true. So this goes way back to this guitar and a couple of other builds that I made, because our Arran was renovated, and on the wall there were these wall boards, and they were all solid mahogany, and they had been hanging there for 50 years. And we got this renovation. I said, don't throw away this. I want to have this wood, because I had already done my trash guitar and one of real tone woods. And I said, I'm going to build guitars out of those. This is what I claimed. I went to school to vice principal, vice head teacher, and said, I'm going to build guitars out of the Arran, and we auctioned them off, and we used the money to support our India project that we have, because we're sending schools to we're sending kids to a grammar school to take them off the street and give them an education, but this costs a couple of thousands a year. And so I said, I will do that. And later in the process, he would tell me he thought I was kind of insane or losing it with this preposterous idea. But I did that, and I sold a couple of those guitars for charitable reasons. And then more and more people wanted those guitars, and I basically used up all the wood that I had left. And in consequence of that, I said, okay, maybe we can turn this into something that is like a trademark of our school, so to speak, to put guitar production into the curriculum.
Oh, amazing.
It's not a curriculum, yeah. And then I reached out to YouTube, because, of course, there is no money for that and no funding for buying tools, like buying a handful of Dremels and all these things that you need for guitar building. And I reached out to YouTube and had my first raffle. Then I raffled off 2 guitars in order to make the money. I made about €3,000 that I had already invested in buying the tools for this guitar building class. And this has been running ever since. And it costs me a lot of time, more than I actually wanted it to cost me, because my plan was, I'm a teacher, you know that, and we teach by approaching a group of people and saying, we're doing this today, and we're doing that, and we're doing it in this and that order. But of course, people would work in different speeds, and some are far ahead, some are behind, and I have to jump around from this to that to that to that student in order to help them with the respective step. But a number of them have finished their guitars and they're happy with it, and now more people are coming. Even parents, grandparents, teachers are joining the class, even though I have to do that at 2 afternoons as an extracurricular activity for a couple of hours, which of course is not paid, but it's good to go. I get a compensation. This year I have not got to teach so many lessons as I normally would have to, in order to make up for the time I spend in the guitar building class. And with the school teach that we had the other week, we had an exhibition of all the pieces and of all the guitars in the becoming, so at the different stages, as one of the contributions for people to see. So this is kind of a successful model, but of course it costs a lot of time doing that. And of course, the children don't have to pay anything apart from the cost for the materials they're using.
That's such an amazing story. Great. There's been quite a few of the guests we've had on who do work that's quite make guitars they sell to charity. They do work which they're teaching other people to make guitars, and they're not necessarily being paid for it, or it's slightly beyond what they're doing. It feels like a really great community. I know you said on YouTube you had some horrible people at one point commenting, but in general I feel like there's a lot of support for each other. That whole making is just such a great thing anyway. But we don't really talk. The people that make the guitars with you, are they all people that are interested in making a guitar because they play, students? Or is it more...
Some of them don't even play,
Yeah,
which is
right.
one thing. I had a colleague, for instance, and he wanted to use the opportunity to build a guitar for his brother, who recently got married, and it was in the time of COVID, so they couldn't have a big celebration, and they were postponing that. And he said, and when this is due, then he will hand over the guitar to him. And some people are just building for the joy of working with their hands. Some are more talented than others, but in the end, everybody has their working instrument, and they're all solid acoustic guitars. And if you buy an all solid on the market, you have to invest a lot of money already. And if it's a hand-built guitar, which nobody else has, then it's even better. And some of them are really talented. I had a couple of girls who were doing immaculate work on their guitars, even designing their logos and putting them in. Yeah, so it's nice.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, Ty often comes in, Ty from Shock the Fox often comes in and jokes in the chat about how many beards there are on screen at any time here. But it does feel like it is quite a male-focused hobby or industry, really.
That is true, but if I may interrupt you, I have the age that I've got a beard growing because no estrogen left anymore in my body. And that means I partly qualify for that male hobby. No, but that's a fact. We Germans are blunt, you know that. The thing is that I sometimes get I get everything on YouTube, going from marriage proposals to people saying that this must be ghost building, and I even had to Google ghost building because I didn't know what that was, because they kind of cannot imagine that a woman does such a thing. But I see people as people normally, and I think everybody has got hands and a brain, so why not use that? If you take a look at other species, like a lioness or something, she goes hunting, and the guy sits at home, waits for her to bring the prey back home. So why not just do it? And I've been contacted by a couple of women, and some of which have started out their own builds now, but also by guys, and they keep asking me questions, and they keep me updated on how far they are in the process of building their guitars, and ask for tips and whatever. But I always tell them I can only tell you how I do it. There is no right or wrong. You just have to learn on the way how you want it to be, and then do it. I mean, what's keeping you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of so we've got video on in the background again. But I think even the way you edit and cut the videos together, it feels instructional as well as inspirational. So obviously the teaching aspect is there.
Yeah. I've changed my procedure a bit, because in former times I would film the whole thing, and then I had, like, for an acoustic guitar with a bevel, there is about 250 steps that you have to do, and I film all of the steps, and then you've got 250 videos that you have got to put together to one video. And that can be a bit tiring, you know, that when you're sitting in front of your PC and you pick video bit by video bit and try to see which one, which part do I put in, how long, and so on. But now I'm doing it like this, that once I have filmed, like, let's say 10 steps or so, I immediately import them into my video editing software and already put them together. That makes it a lot easier and less tedious, because if you do that with all the videos at once, then you might very well sit 1 or 2 days just putting it together in front of the computer. So I'm doing that. But I don't feel obliged to make so many YouTube videos with 1 hour content. So I can feel free to say, no, I'm not filming that today. And are you going to sue me because of that? I hope not.
No.
Hey, Gabby, I actually have a question,
Yes, Mark.
or actually like your opinion. I don't build acoustic guitars, but I do play them. And I think that in this podcast, in this community, we rarely talk about guitar strings. And yet it's the one thing that I can change in my acoustics that'll change the projection and the tone. So I guess I want your opinion on acoustic guitar strings, the alloys. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. So I prefer phosphor bronze strings on my guitars. I've got 3 also that are rather like bronze strings on. But strangely enough, those are the ones with maple necks. So I find that combination to work a bit better. And I build my guitars for 11s. So some people like to have stronger gauges on their guitar, but to my feeling and my experience, that kills tone in an acoustic. You get more volume, you get a louder guitar, and you get more punch maybe, but I think the strings don't ring out so much if they're too thick. That's my personal experience. And 11s are good for me. And when I build my guitars, I normally string them off for the first time with the cheapest of the cheapest of the cheapest strings that you can get. And I'm talking about a whole set is about €2. Because you know that, I don't know if you know that, but I know it from acoustic guitars, because when I'm adjusting everything, the saddle intonation and so on, it's not like that I can just screw them in position, because I will have to take out the saddle, I will have to file it, put it back in and then see if it's good enough, or if I have to file more and so on. I have to loosen and tune it again, loosen it, tune it again, and if you do that a couple of times, sooner or later a string will break, and then you will have to put on a new set. And what I'm using for playing my guitars again is not an expensive set of phosphor bronze strings. They're about €3.50, and that's what I use. In former times, when I had guitars that I bought, I would go hunting for strings. I would read reviews and watch YouTube videos, which string gauge and so on. And I found a couple of strings that I liked. But then again, the sound and the playability, that's an individual thing. If it's good enough for me, it's good enough for me. I shouldn't care so much what the other people think. And for me, it's phosphor bronze 11s that make me kind of happy.
Nice. I know what you mean about the cheap strings. Same here. You got to put on a cheap set to set up the guitar, and then you toss them after that. And on that note, Corey just found a really great deal on Temu, which is like 4-pack or 6-pack of strings for like $4, which is great. So it's super cheap strings for setting up your guitar.
Yeah, I've got to say, I've been doing the same. I recently made a guitar for someone where he wanted these really expensive Alexis strings on, which I've never used before. The most expensive strings I bought. I put them on, realised there was a problem with the bridge, broke one of the strings in the backwards and forwards of intonating it all. Bought another set, all fine now. But then I've realised that I've got to respray part of it, and I'm very anxious now. I've got to unstring it and hopefully not break something in the progress. Can I just go? I just want to quickly ask, because we've just missed it. On your video here, one thing I like are your jigs. What are you using here? They look like arrows.
In this video?
Yeah.
That was my mobile Goode deck, actually, and I used in the beginning I used arrows from shooting bows and arrows, like arrows, and I changed that. I'm still using the arrows because this Goode deck has the height and strength for these arrows, but I changed that. This is at school now for the guitar building workshop. This is what people there are using, and I changed my Goode deck technique. In the background of the video here, you can see that there is the aisle to the staircase that leads downwards, and in the left corner there are 2 drawers, a chest of drawers, and I just put a board over one of them that is attached to the wall and to the one chest of drawers. And I pull out one of the chests of drawers, pull it out of the way, and I use this as a go-bar deck against the floor. So I put my jig on the floor, the disc that I have, the radius dish, and then I clamp it there. And for that I bought new rods, and they're simply for gardening. So basically you use them for plants, to hold plants upright, but I use them for my go-bar deck.
Brilliant. I'm sure I've seen in multiple videos you working on the floor as well.
This is when you see me working on the floor, exactly. This is when I sit there and put on the bracing.
Can I ask you a question about True Oil? Because I've just used it for the first time and I really enjoyed using it. And I don't normally do oil finishes, but it's made me want to do more. And I was going to try out some other things. I know Arran said in a previous podcast he uses Danish oil all the time. Mm-hmm. Do you find with the True Oil, because this is what I've read, I've not experienced it yet, that if you don't use the bottle quickly, it just sort of goes off a bit? Because I'm not sure whether to buy a big supply or just keep buying the small bottles, which seem to be on guitar.
I buy them in the big bottle, the biggest bottle possible that we have here. And there is a tip of True Oil users that there is this little aluminium. Sorry, I take the British way, but for the Americans, aluminium, because there is another I in the word. Lids that I have inside the real lid. You shouldn't open that, but you just punch a little hole in it, and you should just, when you're not using the oil, you just flip the bottle upside down and have it on rest on the lid, actually, so that there is no air going.
Yep.
There's no air going inside the bottle, and then it can't oxidate or whatever it does. And you can still use it if it's a bit old. It smells a bit. I don't like the smell at all. Not if it's fresh, and not if it's a bit older. But you can still use it.
Why did I never think of that?
Great tips.
I've never seen it go bad, but I have had bottles dry up.
Right. No, I only used it once. I made a video of how I used it, and that was a tip that I'd seen a few people mention, so that's what I did as well. So I'm glad now I know that might work with a big bottle. I think I'm going to invest, because like you, I found using the True Oil one of the better processes. And one of the things I liked about it was I wasn't using all of this fumigating stuff that filled up my space, and it was really pleasant to do. I had music on, and then each layer you put on, it was like the guitar was coming more and more to life, which happens with the spray, but you don't get to. I spray and then I leave the room, whereas here I could look at it and watch it.
Yeah,
plus the smell was great.
Maybe you get a bit stoned because of the spray, and then you can't take in the process of the wood being fired up. But with the oil, it's the greatest process. I'm so looking forward. And sometimes I think I'm only building guitars for that moment. And I put on the oil on the wood, and when it pops and it comes out, that's so great.
And how many coats would you put on normally?
As many as it takes. So it is quite a few, but sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 20, depending on the wood itself, because some woods are, they absorb more. They're open pore woods, like mahogany, for instance. But I personally, on the mahogany guitars, I like the open pore look. I don't like the shiny thing too much. No. You can do the old thing that mostly all of you know, that you wet sand it with the oil so that you create sawdust that mixes up with the oil and fills the pores. But that's not always necessary. It depends on whether you want to go for a glossy look, or whether you want a semi-gloss look, or whether you want a matte look. So I do whatever I like, and when I think this looks good on this guitar, I'm done with the oiling process.
Yeah, on that note, I think Birchwood Casey, who makes the True Oil, also makes a product called Satin Sheen, which I've been using. So if you do want a matte or satin type finish, you could put the Satin Sheen over the True Oil, and it kind of satinizes it. And it's a product I've been using recently. It's actually not that bad.
And the good thing about the true oil is, in some of my builds I did it at first oil the guitar and then later spray paint it, because you can't spray over true oil.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But I mean, with the spraying is you might get a super glossy finish, and it kind of is satisfying of sanding it and then polishing it. But the moment you sand through it, you might all know that it's not so satisfying anymore.
No.
Maybe
And I
because
think we were talking last week about having the back of the neck slightly sort of roughed up and not having it too glossy, weren't we?
Yeah, satin neck, of course, works a lot better, and I like the feel a lot better. When I still was into buying guitars, I went into a shop and I wanted to buy a Polish guitar. They're from Czechoslovakia and the Czech Republic is it today. So they're from there, very good handmade guitars, and I drove a while to get there, and then I played it, I liked it, and then the owner of the shop came and showed me from his showroom this and that fantastic guitar if I was interested in that, and then he said this is the best guitar he has there, and it sounded nice, but the neck was so sticky. I was a high gloss neck and so sticky. So it's like the baseball neck thing that you have got with that. I barely couldn't touch it. The first thing I would do to that 10,000 euro guitar I would take sandpaper and go over the neck in order to make it smooth. And what I don't like about necks also is that a lot of people even with guitars that you can buy, they have whatever shape, maybe a D, a C. It doesn't speak to me so much because I take what's good for my hand. But they have the shape and almost rectangular into the fretboard. And I don't like that when you feel the edge of the fretboard when you're coming around, which is why I always do rounded edges in my guitars, and while I make sure that when I go into the binding of the fretboard that I go at an angle so that I get a very smooth feeling around it. So I don't know what kind of letter that would make the necks I make.
No.
Someone earlier on in the chat, it was Electric Lady Guitars again, asked, is it only guitars that you make? And I remember we had a little bit of trouble before we started with my internet, so cut in and out. But I heard you discussing with the others that you're making other things as well now, as well as guitars, or
I've always made other things now. So furniture is something, and the other day I dismantled the 140 euro piano, and from the keyboard I'm actually in the process of making a coffee table out of that to give it away. And our grand piano at school needs to be replaced because there are signs on it saying danger, don't move, it can collapse and something. And we had a budget of 7,000 euro for kind of fixing it, and we had 3 guys there, experts, that said you can't fix it for 7,000 euro, and even if you invested those 7,000 euro, it would be worth 1,000 then. So what we're doing is we're buying a new one. We had to finance that, and I'm allowed to take apart the grand piano for using the soundboard in it, which I have already done with the other piano, for guitar tops, for instance.
Oh, amazing!
Furniture and stuff like key rings, or using the hammers for what do you call it when you get in a house and you hang your clothes on it? What's that called?
Oh, hooks. I mean,
like for the hook board.
I know what you mean.
So you can use them for that. So, and I will build a couple of things like that will be raffled off in order to refinance. Then I will build a couple guitars. I will build that. So I'm using things for giving it new purpose. I built some furniture. I built machines, jig stuff that I need for making some other things easier, coffee tables, whatever.
Excellent. That's good. Can I just ask something about your Christmas calendar, because it fascinates me? How do you get such a talented group of musicians together? It just seems incredible.
Oh, thank you. They might be glad to hear that. Well, they're all former students of mine that you can see. There is only one person that is in the calendar who's not a former student of mine, and most of them were in my band at school because I run the band. We've got different kinds of music ensembles, and I do the rock band, as we call it. And there are kids coming, and when they leave school and go into the world of work, I keep in touch with some of them because we're bound by the music, and then I re-invite them back for doing music, or we're playing music together. Yeah. And that's how we join for the calendar. And of course, I don't pick the ones that can't sing and play. Hey, let's do a calendar with the most untalented people in the world.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It might be an encore this year.
the reason I say that is that me and a couple of guys, a lady who plays the drums and a chap who sings, we're trying to get together a little band, and we've had about 5 people or so who say, yes, we'll come along, yes, we play the piano, we play the guitar, and the week before, oh no, we've thought about it, and I'm not sure we'll have enough time, and you think, oh my goodness me, all we're doing is trying to have a bit of fun, and then you see all your people get together and you think, we could have that.
It's always a treat for me and for them. Actually, they love coming back because we always include having talks, and then I invite them over and they come to my place. We have breakfast together, big breakfast, and then we go out, find the location, and try to make the video. And if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work, then we take the take that's the best, and here you go.
Very good.
Hey, Gabby, when I was watching your arm bevel video, I heard you singing under your breath an Iron Maiden song.
Yep.
It was Wasted Years.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, were you into 80s metal back in the day?
I'm into 80s music, I'd say. My brothers were more the metal heads, but when I started out playing the guitar, the electric guitar, so then of course certain kind of genres came up more easily. And my first concert actually was Gary Moore, and I was in the first row on the Wild Frontier tour, and I enjoyed it a lot, and even caught the drumstick that Eric Singer, drummer back at the time for this tour, threw into the audience, and I was into that kind of playing. But I'm not a solo guitarist, so I'm rhythm guitarist mostly. I can play some solos, and my all-time hero, guitar hero, is Dr. Brian Harold May, and I even have a video with him. But because 2020 was the year COVID started, but Brian May made my year back then because he had this challenge that he said, play with me, and he posted videos to which you could jam with him and do something. And I played a video with Brian that was really great. And so this kind of music, Queen was the first band that really got into, and I had a greatest hits record, and the other band, my first 2 records were the greatest hits, 2 by Queen, was it 2 or 1, and Survivor. Survivor was a band that I really liked, they divide the signs on. Yeah. So let's say guitar rhythm, melodic rock was what I was into, but I knew the Maiden stuff and Judas Priest and whatever my brothers would be listening to, and I tried to play those things too.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I can see Scott nodding along. As Scott always says, I made them the best band ever. Is that right?
Yeah. Past, present, future.
Today I'm more into acoustic stuff, because when we started the calendar and doing covers of things, we wanted it to be acoustic, because Jennifer, the one other guitarist that I started it out with, and we said, what can we do with songs that we like acoustically? Because we think that a good song should be, you should be able to play a song acoustically and still is a good song, so that you don't rely on technology and amps and effects chains and whatever for the song to sound good. And this is, and I loved MTV Unplugged this when it still was on this series, and so this is how we got into that kind of music. So last year we had the Maiden song on the calendar, The Wasted Years, but in an acoustic version. This is what we do.
Some behind the scenes info here. I heard Dave and Gabi talking earlier that you're already recording for this year's Christmas Advent. Amazing Christmas Advent.
As I said before,
Sorry, Karen.
As I said before, I mean, these may be my former students, but they're all like in their 30s, some of them mid-20s. They are in the world of work, and we'll have to find, some of them are parents already and have to take care of the kids. So you will have to find the time when to get together. So some of it is very spontaneous, and there's this married couple, David and Teresa. They've just become parents for the second time, and they're so talented and with beautiful voices. But now they're quite a bit busy with the kids, and they have to find a way to press it in. And if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't.
This has been a really great chat, Gabi. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Even though electric community, I'm sorry for being so acoustic.
Well, listen, we've had a few acoustic guitar builders or people that sell and make and produce tone woods, and it's made me think we should try and have that bit more regularly, because it is obviously so much is connected. And for me anyway, one of the things I like about this and like about other podcasts I listen to is the making element. So it doesn't have to be something that I can make myself that I like listening to people talking about. It's that whole inspiration of building and making and creating that I enjoy. There's a link to your YouTube, as I mentioned before, in the description, so you can go back and see. I think you've got 2 years of the Christmas. Is it more than that?
I've been doing that for, this is the 12th year now, but we're on YouTube for, I think, 4 years. It's
4 years. Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Amazing.
There's more songs to listen to.
Yeah, I think I must have just found you through Great Guitar Build Off, and but you've been obviously on for much longer. We've got a little bit of a change in the next couple of weeks. I haven't told everyone about, but I'm away the next 2 Thursdays. So we're doing one next Wednesday. I haven't checked with everyone if you can make it yet. I don't know who's going to be the guest then. And then the following Friday, we've got Simon, who might be in the live chat at the moment, who works at a place where lots of people come. It's like a community space to build. It sounds really interesting. So I want to chat to him about that. Then I haven't quite confirmed all the dates yet, but we've got Joe from Hello Sailor Effects, so an effects pedal builder, to come on at the end of the month. I thought that'd be good because we seem to be talking a lot more about pedals at the moment. Ray, who's just put a comment in the chat, we haven't sorted out a date with him yet, but he's just finished his course at Crimson Guitars, so we'll get him back on to talk a bit about what he's built and his traveling there. We've got Electric Lady Guitars, who has been in the chat earlier. He had to leave. He's the person that makes the guitars where all the wood seems to be sourced almost on his doorstep. I met someone online recently who I thought would be interesting, Bobby Jarvis Jr., who's a teacher, and he, on his YouTube channel, as well as teaching, he does reviews of guitars and things. So I thought it'd be great to have someone on who's got a bit of experience of being a player, so we can go back into how the design of guitar affects the playing. And obviously he's got lots of students that he'll work with, no doubt talk to them about how to make the best choice of guitar, and someone that reviews guitars, I'm sure he knows a lot about it. We've got Paul from Minehouse Studios coming as well. I think that's everyone I've got lined up so far, but if anyone's got any other
already,
yeah, it's already filling up. I'm definitely going to try and contact a few more acoustic builders. That'd be excellent.
So then, thank you in general for doing this, because it takes a lot of work. And as I learned from your last podcasts, you're not making big money of the whole thing. So the more the estimation for this is. Thanks for
well, it's some breaking news. As the podcast or the live stream's getting more popular this month, from the podcast alone in advertising, I've earned just over £7. Yeah. I want to thank everyone that's very kindly donated via super thanks. It's been brilliant. There's been a lot of oh, and look, Owen who's in the chat has just become a member. Thank you, Owen. Yes, I was going to say the super thanks have been brilliant. because I'm now paid for the podcasting app to distribute the audio to different places. So that's been great. I haven't quite still got round to, because I'm just recovering from that bout of COVID, sorting out the t-shirts to be worldwide, but at the moment you can buy t-shirts from us as well, and the membership's going up, which is really helpful as well. We've got Electric Lady Guitars, Adair Guitars, BB Guitars, Simon, Mr. Glyn's Pickups, FPS, Dave, thank you Dave, and Ray Custom Unlimited. It's all been great, and all these things are definitely helping, because it's helping towards the cost of doing it all, which is great. But I would still do it, I think, because it is so much fun. It's just hard trying to justify everything at the moment, but who knows, maybe my one-string guitars that sold a bit at the Brighton Guitar Show will help.
Okay, before we leave, I've got 2 more questions for you, Danielle.
Yeah, sure.
What we're wondering about. The one thing is, what's Devil and Sons? Why Devil?
Yes. So very simple reason, 2 connected things there. I grew up in the East End of London, and I worked a lot around there. And then before I set up doing guitars, I moved my workshop to the south of London. And both of those areas, or all 3 of those areas, where I grew up, where I worked in East London, where I worked in South London, had a lot of traditional family-run businesses. So around the East End of London, there's like bell foundries. In the south of London, right near where I was, there were quite a few butchers and things like that. And then in the East End, you had lots of businesses, which was Something and Sons. So I thought I liked that connection of the idea of, I wanted something to feel like it's been around a while and been passed on. But recently I've changed it to and daughters, because now I've got 2 children and they're both girls, and it seems to make more sense. So I've sort of separated. I've got Devil and Sons and Devil and Daughters. So everything I do that is kind of education based or like community based, like this and the Luthier's lunch break, are staying as Devil and Sons, and all the guitar builds I do are as Devil and Daughters. And the Devil and Daughters Instagram and YouTube, I'm thinking of being more of an archive of the finished builds. Because I've had a few people say to me, we're interested in your guitars, but when we look at your websites, when we look at your social media feeds, it's all nothing to do with finished guitars. It's all about making and things like that. And we want to see what your guitars look like. So that's going to be separate. And then the Devil idea was sort of a few things merged into one, kind of like I'm really into heavy metal and rock music and things that have a slight tradition, although it's a bit of a stereotype, I guess, in devils and skulls and things like that. But I like the idea of Robert Johnson going down to the crossroads and selling his soul to the devil to be able to play the best guitar ever, the best guitarist in the world. So the idea was that the tagline originally was Devil and Sons guitars you'd sell your soul for. So I kind of like that kind of connection to a music historic reference, and hence the and Sons being this idea of a family business. And when I originally set it up, all my sort of imagery that was going on the website, etc., looked like traditional old workshops that I was working in.
Okay. The second thing is, sorry.
No.
Okay, second thing is that actually goes for Daniel and Dave, if you might say so, on YouTube in the live stream. Where are you located in England?
So I'm in Brighton, which is on the south coast.
Because I'll be going there next month in Brighton. To Brighton.
Oh, really? Well, we'll have to message.
I am.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What's bringing you to Brighton?
I'm in Worcestershire, which is a little bit up from Brighton,
Okay.
so, the middle of the country.
I love your song, Dave.
So we might stay in touch, maybe pop by.
Definitely. Next month's good because school's back, so I'm much more free. At the moment, it's school holidays, and I'm not where I think I should be most of the time. I'm where my kids want me to be. Yeah, a great thing.
I love how nobody has to ask where my name came from.
I always wondered, beforehand, I was like, okay, head Bonehead, that's Scott. Head Bonehead, that's Scott. That's Scott. His name is not Head, his name is Scott.
Right.
Where did he come from, Scott? Come on, tell us.
Just watch one of my videos, and it's obvious. Actually, it's been around for a long time, and it kind of has a story. But when I put the channel together, it was the idea was there weren't that many build channels out at the time, and there were a lot of little one-off builds, and everybody was like, "This was my first build, and it turned out great." And I'm like, "Yeah, bullshit." So I planned on. I knew I was going to make a lot of mistakes, but I wanted to, rather than hide them, I wanted to be honest and try to show that stuff. So initially, I just kind of leaned into the Bonehead thing for that reason. And for the first 2 or 3 builds, at least on YouTube, I actually had a Bonehead move counter. So every time I'd make a mistake, it ding. But as running number, it got to be kind of complicated keeping track of the number from video to video. But a million years ago, I had to write a paper in college, and I just started doing some internet junk, and my mother was on this website. It was chathouse.com. So I created an account, and you have to come up with a username, and I just I don't know, I just said Bonehead. Just self-deprecation has generally been my favorite form of comedy anyway. And of course Bonehead was taken, so like Bonehead the Third, and I used that for the longest time, but so used it for a lot of things. And years ago I had a little software company, and I called it Bonesoft, and I was the head bonehead of Bonesoft. So when the guitar concept came along and I needed something, I was like, it's Bonehead Guitars. And luckily, at least I think in guitar building, and especially electric, it makes a lot more sense to have a little more of a less formal, kind of name. So I don't know. I thought the branding was kind of cool too.
And the little bone on the fretboard is the icing on the cake, isn't it?
I don't want to elongate this, but that leaves you with Footstep guitars. What about?
Oh, that was really because I was building travel guitars. Well, that was my idea, to start building travel guitars, and just that we were on the beach and there was footsteps in the sand, and I thought, oh, hang on, has anybody got that? No. So that was it. But it's not really
that story.
Plus, there you go.
I do an imprint of my fingertip, because each of my tickets, not the tickets, the stickers that I put in, I have that digitalized and put it on the sticker so that you can see this is a guitar made by me. So you could take part of your soul of
stick my foot on it. I'll certainly put my foot in it most of the
I think that is a great note to leave on. Well, I mean, we don't have to ask Mark where you got your name from.
I was born with it.
Yeah.
Came out that way.
At least that is shortly afterwards.
Hey, everybody's homework for this week is to listen to some Robert Johnson, because that is some haunting acoustic guitar tones right there.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's still there, but on Netflix, at least in the UK, there was a couple of years ago a great documentary about him as well. Brilliant stuff. Good homework, Mark. we can mark the homework next week when we do a review. Great. So thanks again, everyone. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, do the thumbs up, leave a comment or whatever. It'd be great to share this with anyone you know that's interested in acoustic guitars as well. I think what I might do is start putting together a little playlist of different episodes we've had. So a playlist of the different builders we've had on that are acoustic builders or acoustic related might be one way forward. To have a little grab of a few different episodes to sit through. Excellent. Great. Well, thanks everyone, and see you next week. Next week will be on Wednesday. Stay tuned for all the detail.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Great to see you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. The Guitar Builders Collective is a group of like-minded people from all around the world at different stages of their guitar building journey. You can join us over on our forum to seek advice or share tips on guitar building processes, materials and tools, or just to share your builds. On YouTube, we have a regular podcast of guitar building chat where you can join the live stream or watch back on past episodes. Our Instagram page shares posts of members' builds and links you direct to their accounts. And for those of you on Facebook, we've got a private group that you can join, share and chat along with. The Guitar Builders Collective is a welcome and open space for all, so do pop by and say hi.